Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the first in a new Lunch and Learn series focused on continuing local government in the time of crisis. My name is Troy Mix, and I'm Associate Director of the University of Delaware's Institute for Public Administration, IPA for short. One of the challenges I think we're all facing right now is that we're asked to physically distance, but I know we really need connection more than ever, professionally and personally. So I know my colleagues and I are really pleased to partner with the City Management Association of Delaware on this continuing series. And one of our great partners in that effort so far has been Anne-Marie Townshend, City Manager, Lewes, Delaware. So I'm pleased to introduce Anne-Marie and kick it over to her to run the rest of the program. Anne-Marie, it's all yours.
Thank you. And I had kind of had this going through my head as all of these new things became so important. So I'm really glad the university took the initiative. So I'm going to go through the first few slides, and then Christine Ho, who is our local government management fellow, will talk about some of the examples. You know, what we're looking for is what I've described this as kind of the 30,000 foot view, and then in the future weeks we'll take a deeper dive. And after today, we definitely want your feedback so that we can continue to improve upon the series. So, I don't know why it's not, there we go. So Tom Roth assumed that lunch would be provided, and he asked for a Reuben, so I figured I'd start off with that. But really what we are here to talk about is this new normal that we're finding ourselves in. We've had rapid changes that have required flexibility, agility, which is not necessarily something that government's known for. I think most of us probably pulled our emergency operation plans off the shelf and realized that we were prepared for a normal crisis, if there is such a thing, such as a weather emergency. There was nothing in our emergency operation plan that helped us deal with the physical distance, the multi-month crisis, and just the unpredictability that we're dealing with right now. So, you know, we're dealing with a number of challenges. One is responding to the crisis. Another is keeping things going, because again, this isn't something where we're out of commission for a week and then we get back to normal. We have to figure out how to keep things going over a period of weeks and maybe even months. And again, with the virus, we want to make sure we're keeping our workforce safe. So we're going to cover telework, virtual public meetings, how we communicate in these new times, some of the budget implications. We won't get in great detail. Actually, won't get in great detail on any of these because that's what the future sessions are for. Employee safety, you know, and then when this is all done, we want to look back and say, you know, what did we learn? So as we're going through this situation we're in, we want to make sure that we are taking note of what's working and what's not. And then Christine's going to go through the things that are working in Delaware. We will post the slides, and I'll email out the slides. I have a number of hyperlinks in here that would take you to resources. You know, in terms of telework, a lot of our agencies probably had not been accustomed to telework yet. And it's probably out of our comfort zones, but we've had to change very quickly. You know, issues we need to deal with, accountability, communication, you know, what resources do you need? ICMA did a really good blog on, it's called Quick Steps to Preparing a Remote Work Policy for Your Local Government. And they also had a sample telework form. So I've put links to those because they are very, I thought they were very helpful resources as we were getting up and running. Virtual public meetings. This is something that I think at first we thought, well, we can probably get through a month without a council meeting. But as it's going on, I think most elected bodies are trying to figure out how to meet. So I thought it was important to make sure that I pulled the language out of the state of emergency, because under FOIA, elected bodies aren't supposed to meet via video and telephone. So the executive order or the emergency declaration addresses this specifically. It states that technology must permit members of the public body to hear comments of and speak to all those participating, and to members of the public to hear the comments and to speak to the members of the public body, which this actually goes a little beyond what's normally required for a public meeting, because if you have a meeting in your council chambers, there's no requirement that the public participate. So that this is a little nuanced. Public must have electronic access to the materials, which again is not something that's normally required under FOIA. And that the members of the public body must identify themselves before speaking. So as you look at electronic meetings, just keep those things in mind. There are a number of platforms. Zoom, GoToMeeting, RingCentral, WebEx are very similar. I think they all have some free components and then others that you pay for, but they have a very similar interface. I know Milton is using freeconferencecall.com, and they have, in addition to just the conference calling, they do have video meeting options as well. We've also started using, not for our council meetings, but for our working meetings, Microsoft Teams, and that actually has a lot of functionality to it. So if you have Microsoft Office 365 and have not gotten into Microsoft Teams, it's definitely something worth looking at. Communication, again, while people are in their houses, our staff are often working remotely. The regular mail isn't as reliable. Well, not if you're working remotely to get things out, but people are looking for us to reach them different ways. Next week, we will have Chris Johnson and Tricia Newcomer talk to us about the things that Rehoboth Beach and Seaford are doing, but these are just some of the various ways that you can communicate with the public and with your elected officials and staff. The budget implications. I know I've talked to a number of managers. The coastal towns, most of us have fiscal years that start April 1st, so we were adopting our budgets right as the state of emergency was going into effect. So, we had revenues associated with the taxes that the short-term rentals pay and parking revenues that are likely not to come in as projected. So, I think most towns are going to be looking at how do we provide the services with our revenues kind of disrupted. And then there's unanticipated costs. I know I just sent something out to the managers. We may be one of the few towns that's doing this, but in our police contract, during a state of emergency, the officers get paid time and a half for all regular hours worked, and it's a budget buster. But I think, I imagine that many of us have been purchasing laptops and software and other things that we weren't, or paying for cleaning of the buildings at a level that much exceeds what would be normally done. There are, and again, we're not going to get into great detail here, but there are a number of relief funds through the federal government, most of which are administered by the states. Track all of your expenses, track your staff time, track everything, because that will be necessary when we as towns go to get reimbursement. And again, employee health and safety, there's things like masks, gloves, hand sanitizer, regular cleaning of the work environment. A lot of towns have rotated shifts or done other things to separate employees so that they're able to distance. Communication, I think, in a time of crisis is extremely important, But one of the things that I think we don't think about as much, and certainly has come up, is the issue of mental health and the stress that this puts on employees, the stress it puts on essential employees that I see a raised hand, so I'm going to try to figure out how to do that. So give me a minute, Mike. So, we do have, and this link is to the employee assistance program through the state of Delaware. So if you're on the Delaware health insurance program, you're eligible for that. I'm going to see if I can, I'm looking for Mike's raised hand here. Did you lower your hand, Mike? I guess, okay. I'm still mastering technology, so, okay. So what comes next? And I think, as we're going through this, we want to figure out what can we learn from this? What abrupt changes have we made that actually provide value to keep over the long term? I think most experts are saying, and you saw it with the president's rollout, I think yesterday or the day before, that we're looking at phasing in a recovery. So during this, we're going to have to look at how do we support our own local economies, again, continuing to protect the health and safety of our residents and our staff. And then, we're starting to look at already, how can we improve our emergency operations plan so that it can help us with some of these things. So with this, I am going to turn it over to Christine. This tells me that I can actually hand her, I think I just handed her the mouse. Do you have it, Christine?
We'll see. So
if it doesn't, I can do it.
Okay, so we'll figure it out. So hi everybody, I'm just going to go through like a few snapshots from just a couple municipalities on things that they've experienced or things that have been working. It would probably take me a few hours to kind of go over all the creative problem solving that's been going on. So I'm just going to go over a couple. Let's see if this works. It's not working.
It's not
yes,
working.
It is working.
Oh, it is working. Okay.
Okay, awesome. So we're going to start with Milford. So Milford was pretty proactive in closing their buildings to the public, and I believe most people, if not all, have their buildings closed to the public, but they closed those on March 13th. They currently have their workforce on a 1 week on, 1 week off schedule. So they'll have a group of employees in 1 week, and the next week it'll be a different group of employees, just to make sure that people aren't coming into contact with one another as much. And in between the 2 weeks, they are doing a kind of a fogging of buildings, which is just like a huge sanitation of all their buildings to make sure that one employee group isn't going to transfer something to the other employee group, just in case. They also received approval from the state to launch emergency childcare services, and they were going to host that through their Parks and Recreation. However, the split shift that they ended up doing made it so everybody had adequate childcare arrangements, so they haven't had to use that yet. On top of the fogging, they are cleaning and sanitizing their buildings throughout the day. And as of April 6th, they implemented temperature checks and basic screening questions for all employees and visitors before they can enter any buildings. And they have been using go-to meetings for staff and council meetings. They said that there were a few bugs at first, but now they're at the point where it's kind of running a little bit more smoothly. So for Newark, they are using go-to meetings as well, and they are also using Microsoft Teams that Anne-Marie mentioned before.
I think I did that by mistake.
Sorry. That's okay. So, and they're also using go-to meetings for their planning commission meetings, and they thought it was really important to make sure that they were training all of their members on go-to meetings before, kind of having a little bit of a trial run. And they also did something kind of creative that they went to the dollar store and got some headsets and earbuds for the planning commission members and delivered them to their door, and then did a trial run, making sure that kind of everybody had the right equipment and everybody kind of understood what was happening. Also, they've been having conversations about having people work at home since the end of February. And they were kind of just starting to think about things that people would need if they had to work remotely. And then they actually did a pilot program of working from home on March 13th, which just kind of helped them see what other things are they going to need and is it going well. They have suspended rental inspections until further notice, just for the safety of their employees. And they instituted a drop box for people who need to drop off plans or land use applications. And they have an employee who checks that box daily. And they also, along with the rental inspections, for the people who are still in the field and have to do other inspections, they kind of communicated the fact that if they feel unsafe in a situation, they are allowed to leave, just to make sure that everybody is not risking their health for something that they don't need to risk their health for. And I got all this information from Mary Ellen Gray, and she said something that I thought was really interesting, that the perspective that they've kind of adopted is looking at the situation as a new challenge to solve. Every day in local government, there's some kind of problem that's going to come up that you have to kind of tackle. And this isn't any different. Any problem that comes up is something that they've been able to solve before, and they're going to be able to solve going forward. So let's see if it works. Did it work? Maybe? There we go, I think. Okay. So for Rehoboth, as Anne Marie mentioned before, Chris Johnson's going to be giving a presentation on the communications. So I'm not going to go too much into it because she has a lot of wonderful information. So Rehoboth had a crisis management response team formed, and it's made up of elected officials, administration, communications members, emergency responders, and legal members. And they have an extended team as well for IT, finance, and they have some regional representatives on there as well. And this group has the authority to respond to any incident that may come up when it comes to the crisis. They already had a communications plan in place, which kind of outlined how they would disseminate information internally and externally. So they were kind of already on the ball when it came to making sure they were getting the right information out. And they have a lot of external sources that they've been using. They have their city website that they've been putting information on. They also have Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram that they can put information on. And they also have a platform called Envision Rehoboth Beach. And this makes it so that people can kind of contribute to the online conversation they're having. And they have e-news blasts that people can sign up for any kind of information, maybe a road closure or something that's coming up. They also have staggered shifts to make sure employees aren't coming in contact with one another. And they have sanitation stations at every entrance. And if there are employees that have to share a vehicle, if it comes to that, they implemented a policy that they must wear masks in that situation. Sorry, there's a little lag. Okay, so for Lewes, so we have most of our administrative employees working remotely at this point. We're utilizing Zoom for council and staff meetings. And actually right before the crisis kind of really hit, we had just implemented streaming with audio for our council meetings. And Anne Marie was able to figure out a way to link Zoom and YouTube so that we can now have a visual and the audio for viewing our meetings. That's a brand new thing that just happened last week or this week, I believe. And as Anne Marie mentioned, we're using Microsoft Teams, which has been really helpful for collaborating on projects and for meetings. It's kind of nice because you don't have to send a whole email to someone just to be like, hey, can you check out this one tiny thing on this file that I modified? We also created a Facebook page to help get our information out. And we are utilizing Code Red, which allows you to send out email blasts or phone messages to those residents who sign up. And we're updating the website with relevant information. And we also implemented a policy that trash will only be picked up if it's inside a can to kind of limit contact that the streets employees may have with items. Of course, there's going to be a little bit of a growing pains with that because people aren't used to that. So then there was an additional trash pickup day to just kind of help with those growing pains. We also implemented fillable weekly forms to track employee progress since most of our employees are currently working remotely.
So Christine, before you jump off this slide,
Oh, yeah.
as it relates to Zoom, we actually got the webinar extension for Zoom, which allows us to bring in the council members as the panelists, and therefore all of the public are automatically muted and can only speak up if they're recognized. I was concerned about having kind of a free-for-all because we do in Lewes tend to have pretty laid-back public meetings, and we allow the public to engage throughout meetings often. And I was concerned that if we tried to do that electronically, that it would create a level of confusion and chaos that we wouldn't be able to manage. So that is a little more costly than if you're just using Zoom, for us, it has worked out. I would say it's worked out pretty well.
Okay. And finally, for Seaford, so they've been doing something really cool. They've been doing weekly videos with their mayor, the hospital, and the school district to keep everybody up to date on relevant information. Oh, there we go. And they've also been doing public safety videos with their police and fire chiefs. And all of these videos are available on their YouTube channel and their Facebook pages so that they can be viewed at any time. They also reached out to local restaurants and compiled all of their hours of operation so that they could share that to the public to kind of help support the local restaurants during this time. And they just, I think this week was the first week that they did it. They installed cameras and a live streaming system to live stream their council meetings. And I heard that went pretty well. There are a few little bumps, but that's to be expected with anything new. But overall, it went really well. And their buildings have been closed to the public since March 13th, but they do have a drive-through window that's open for customers to make payments and conduct other business if needed. And so are there any questions?
Yeah, at this point, we kind of wanted to get feedback from all of you. One, are there things that you're doing that are working particularly well? Are there topics that you want us to make sure that we get into future sessions? So you can use the either the Q&A on the Zoom thing. You can use the webinar chat, or you can raise your hand. The other thing, we did include some IPA resources. We've got the Complete Communities Toolbox has information in it, but they also, and let me see, I don't know if the link is working.
Anne-Marie, I think I can get into it. This is Marcia. If you let me share my screen.
Okay. Oh, hold on. Am I in it? Is it on the screen now?
No, I don't see it on my screen.
Okay. So, okay. So I'm going to let Marcia share her screen.
Okay. So basically, what we did is we created a Wakelet Microsoft, specifically focusing on what local governments in Delaware are doing, but also policy responses by the state of Delaware, other local governments elsewhere, and major organizations like CDC. So to get to the Wakelet microsite, you just go to Complete Communities, the toolbox, which many of you are familiar with. Very easy, completecommunitiesde.org, all lowercase. And if you scroll down, you'll see this little box, and you just hit Read More. And hopefully it should take you to the Wakelet site automatically. And you can see as you scroll down, that it's organized by state response and guidance. And these are continuously updated sites. Delaware Division of Public Health has their updated daily coronavirus site. Any state of emergency declarations by Governor Carney. I think that, this is the Attorney General, I believe, allowing for meetings electronically by public bodies, including local governments. There's some other portals by the Delaware House Democrats. And then there's local adaptation strategies. So this is something that Phil Barnes put together that many of you were contributing to, what you're specifically doing to safeguard the health and well-being of your staff. Terry Tiemann provided us with a telework form provided by ICMA. And then just basically adaptation strategies. These are things that I picked up through local feeds, social media sites, newsletters. And then I've been updating specific strategies by Delaware local governments using drones to enforce social distancing. This is state parks, bathroom closures, City of Seaford's YouTube messages. So these are all Delaware local government strategies. And if you get down beneath here, there's also community strategies, it's thinking now. some of the food insecurity issues, homelessness issues, what the community is doing, and resources that you can in fact pass on through your local government websites to your residents. Resources for food access, food assistance that are continuously updated, cheer shopping programs. And then if you scroll further down, there's a lot of entries on here. There are some very excellent tips from resources such as from ICMA, policy responses, and some of these are definitely worth reading in terms of making sure that, if you have to adjust your budget, what you need to do, some of the strategies there, how to track and manage recovery costs. A lot of this is compiled by FEMA that has been basically analyzed and redigested by Haggerty Consulting, and how to get your data house in order. So very excellent resources there. So this may be worth sharing in other Friday sessions, or if you have specific things that you think I should include to share with other local governments in Delaware, please just email me. My email is simply msscott@udel.edu.
So there are a few questions that came in. And let me go back to, hold on, I'm going to go back to the end of the PowerPoint. Hold on. Sorry, technical glitches. I have
While Anne
something.
Marie's doing that, this is Troy, and one of the comments that came through that relates to Marcia's things that she was showing was that Terry Tiemann mentioned that the ICMA website, the content is free during the crisis. So a lot of those things, membership resources, are available to you now to support your efforts.
Yeah, so and they're doing the webinars. They're doing webinars weekly that go into a variety of issues, and I believe even that information is, even those are free at this point. We also have Anthony Mangieri said one comment and concern is responsibilities for employees' homes to be an equally safe work environment. So on May 1st. Jamisha Edie is going to be talking to us about telework. And so I think some of those topics will be discussed in that. So I just want to go through the rest of the questions. Savannah Edwards asked, do you think that technology hurdles or the awkwardness discourages some meaningful discussion or feedback from occurring during the public meetings? We have not found that, and Christine talked about Mary Ellen Gray doing a test run with her planning commission the week before, or the weekend before our first fully Zoom meeting. I, along with our city solicitor, got all of our council people on Zoom. We worked out a lot of technical glitches, and after just doing that, not discussing anything, but just getting them all on, getting them comfortable with the technology, we were able to have a pretty seamless meeting. Now, Sheldon Hudson from Millsboro said what's worked for Millsboro is keeping everything low tech, audio only conference call with packet available via the homepage. He said less opportunity for hiccups, things have gone incredibly smoothly so far, including a regular council meeting and 2 Board of Adjustment meetings. And then Scott from Dewey Beach asked, are you regulating topics for various committees? If something is not time sensitive, are you telling that committee that they cannot meet until a later date? In Lewes, we've tried to focus primarily on time sensitive things. But I mean, we had a pretty full agenda this last week, and it actually worked out pretty well. Matt Harline from Dover said you need internal links in the headers to the US and local government to COVID-19 page. I'm gonna try to unmute Matt if I can find him on the list here. Oh, there you are. Matt, can you explain that?
I just looking at that page you showed us, and you got to scroll down and scroll down and scroll down to find that you had
Okay,
headers linked.
okay.
Yeah, there's a, Matt, this is Marcia. There's a little bit of, there's a couple different viewing options. You can compress the view to look at the categories. For me, the way I set it up is there are subheaders under each of those different major titles, and then there's subtitles. So you can compress it to look more like a, I don't know, like everything in a grid format, so you can see everything at a glance. That was the expanded view that I was showing you. I can also show you a more compressed view. But when you click on each of the different topics, it should take you directly to the link of that source. Yeah, but the PDF will open up.
So,
It's not the best. It was a way to compile and an organized collection of everything that was out there, from the local government level in Delaware to the state government to response organizations to local government elsewhere. So this was the first time that I've done that, and there are definitely some kinks there, but you know, if anybody has any recommendations, I'm certainly willing to reorganize them accordingly.
and then Kim Hawkins from Dover asked, are managers having Zoom meetings with staff working at home as a means to stay in touch, answer questions, and give direction? I know in Lewes, we have done that.
I know in Newark they are too.
In Newark they are as well. We've been doing Zoom. We've had department manager meetings once to twice a week. We've had full staff meetings every week to 2 weeks, and then we've been having individual meetings with staff as needed. So,
One thing that I wanted to add to Savannah's question and comment about if it's gonna, you know, make it so there's more hurdles. I think in a way it's kind of, obviously it would be nicer if things were normal right now, but it is kind of nice because I feel a lot of us have been forced to have the streaming option, that people who normally weren't able to either get to council meetings or just didn't have the time are now able to actually watch them, especially if they're recorded. Now they can go back and actually watch the council meeting. So I think it kind of gives people more of a chance to engage in a way, or people that have mobility issues now can ask questions in real time if they weren't able to come to council meetings before. So I think that in a way there is a positive to it.
okay, we have, okay. We do have again, I will send the slideshow out, but we have a link at the bottom of the slideshow to an evaluation. You know, we do want your feedback on this, but we also want, you know, what other topics would be helpful. You know, because we do want to make this helpful. We thought that a half hour would be a good short period, so that everybody who's very busy, you know, you can usually find a half hour. It's harder to find an hour or an hour and a half. So again, we'd love your feedback on all of that. I'm going to move on to the last slide, because next week, and again, I'll send it out to everybody. We have, and we haven't come up with our catchy title yet, but it's going to be about communication, and Chris Johnson and Trisha Booth will be presenting, and that'll be Friday at noon. So I will get the registration information out on that by the end of the day today. I do not see any other hands up or anything. I'm just checking. So I do want to thank you all for spending some time with us today. We are a little bit over a half hour, but not terribly. We look forward to hearing from you about other topics, and certainly anybody who's interested in presenting, we welcome you to join us. So thank you.